Hey friends, welcome back to the Ball Booktuber. Today is January 9th, 2023. It is day 9 of the 31 videos in 31 days challenge. If you've missed any of those, I do have a playlist up that you can check out. I would also appreciate any likes, subscribes, ringing that bell notification, and comments. Thank you for all the support thus far. Today we are going to be going over some of my anticipated releases for 2023, which I know I'm late to the party with this video. Most people have already done it. That's all right. You're going to be seeing some stuff on here that you probably won't see on other lists. So hopefully you can pick some of these up as well. I'm going to start with my most anticipated, but it doesn't necessarily go in order from there. I'll talk about the author. I'll talk about if it's part of a series, who the narrator is, if I know, what little I may or may not know about the plot, that sort of thing. So we're going to start with, again, my most anticipated, and that is certainly Lightbringer. That is Red Rising Book 6 by Pierce Brown. We've been waiting on this one for a couple years now. And there will be a final book as well. I believe it's called The Red God or something of that nature. And this presumably is going to be kind of a leading people back into the light after the really, really dark book, Dark Age. So I'm excited about this. Dark Age was my favorite thus far, which is not the most popular of opinions, but I like dark books, so there you have it. More than likely, I don't know that the narrators have been announced yet, but I would guess that they're probably the same ones that did Dark Age and Iron Gold before that. Obviously, Tim Gerard Reynolds will reprise his role as Darrow. I believe James Langton will be one of the narrators, who's one of my favorites also, and then some other folks. The ensemble narration takes some getting used to, with TGR doing all of it for the first 3 books, but ultimately I kind of like it for the different POVs. So definitely looking forward to this one. It releases on July 25th. I will definitely be reading on release day. I am reading the originals leading up to it, rereading them. Next up, we have Only the Dead. This is Terminalist Book 6 by Jack Carr. I've had a great time getting caught up with this series. Jack Carr, again, is a retired Navy SEAL who I have had occasion to meet. Great guy. He writes his world around a character named James Reese, who likewise was a Navy SEAL. And has a lot of terrible things happen to his family and, to some of his SEALs that he's with and that kind of stuff. And great series. I really enjoy it. The violence is jacked up to 11, which I'm okay with in a thriller. And everything is narrated by Ray Porter, who of course is one of my favorite narrators, so it all is very good. This one releases on May 16th, so I will likely be reading this on release day, but no promises necessarily. But, depending on how May looks at that time, there's a good chance I'll be reading this on release day. Next up, we have Burner, and this is book 12 of the Gray Man series by Mark Greaney. And these books are narrated by Jay Snyder, who does a great job. This series follows Court Gentry, who is a kind of a former CIA asset who works as a hitman, and his kind of on his own at this point, or doing kind of individual solo contract work. And I just wrapped up book 2, so I'm a long way from being caught up on this series, but I've had a great time with the first 2 books. I definitely will be picking up this one on Kindle and audio for when I am ready to get to it. I really enjoy Jay Snyder's narration for this series, and I'm really liking Greeny's writing. He seems to be above par for this particular genre. So looking forward to this one when I get to it, which will probably not be this year or maybe even next year. Next up, we have The Sword Defiant, which is a new entry as far as a new series. I'm not sure if it'll be a trilogy or what the projected number of books are, but it's called Lands of the Firstborn. And this is by Gareth Hanrahan. We don't have an announcement on who, if anyone, will be the narrator yet. Hanrahan has an existing trilogy that's completed, which is the Black Iron Legacy. I'd like to read that before I get to this, but the concept of this one seems pretty cool. So it is this swordsman, and he and 9 of his friends take out this evil lord many, many years prior to the events of the story. And now evil is kind of resurfacing in the world, and it may in fact be some of the individuals that helped him take out the evil lord the first time around. So I'm not explaining that very well, but I didn't want to read the synopsis word for word, but it sounds cool to me. I want to get to his other stuff first before I worry about this. It releases May 2nd, so I definitely will not be ready to read it on release, but at some point I'll definitely get to. Next up, we have The Tyranny of Faith. This is by Richard Swan, and this is part of the Empire of the Wolf series. This is book number 2. And the debut for this came out last year, Justice of Kings, and it was one of definitely my surprise standouts for the year. I really enjoyed it. The narration is done by Lucy Patterson, who did quite a nice job. And it follows kind of the exploits of a justice named Kurt von Volt. And it's a fascinating character. He is kind of Holmesian in nature. And we have, at least in the first book, we had sort of a Watson type of character relaying the events. Younger girl that was kind of a traveling magistrate along with him. So I really enjoyed that story. I'm definitely looking forward to this one. I probably will not be reading it on release because it releases February 14th. And I have a pretty busy January and February stacked up prior to that with a lot of rereads and other stuff that I'm doing. So I'll read it sometime in 2023. I'm not sure when, but I would definitely encourage you to check out this series and this author. I like what he's doing. Next up is kind of an oddball in the sense that it's definitely outside of my comfort zone, and it's an author I haven't read yet and want to. It is Victory City by Salman Rushdie, and he has been living under a fatwa for decades, and his life was in peril last year again when he was attacked on stage and was in very, very serious condition. And it all stems from religious fanatics attacking him for, him speaking his mind and believing in freedom of speech, essentially. So I'm told that he is a beautiful writer. He writes magical realism. I'm a little annoyed that he goes out of his way to say it's not fantasy, but that's okay. This one sounds particularly cool because it is basically a young woman that breathes an empire into existence. So that is a big enough hook for me. That sounds cool. Probably I'd like to read some of his other stuff first, perhaps, but I could see starting with this one. It publishes on February 7th, so it's coming up pretty close here. The narrator is named Sid Sagar, and I don't know anything about that narrator. I didn't listen to a sample or anything, but yeah, this is one I have definitely on the radar that I want to check out. I haven't really read magical realism unless you count the bits and pieces of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell that I've read, but I don't think that really is the same thing. So I don't know a ton about that subgenre or genre or whatever you want to call it, but yeah, Rushdie is somebody that I have an interest in that I want to check out. All right, next up we have a kind of 2 novella bind up and 2 collections of short stories by Peter S. Beagle. And in my standalone video a couple of days ago, I talked about wanting to get to Beagle and his standalone, The Last Unicorn. And these are short fiction sets in that same world, as I understand it. At least the novellas for sure are. I'm not sure if the short stories are separate. But with The Way Home, which is the 2 novella bind up, these are either prequels or sequels, I'm not sure which, to The Last Unicorn. One of them was published back in 2006, and one a Nebula, and one of them is a new piece. That one drops on April 4th, and if there is going to be audio, it hasn't been announced yet, I'm not sure. And then we have 2 collections of short fiction, The Essential, Peter S. Beagle, volumes 1 and 2. Those drop on May 16th. So I actually have NetGalley advanced reader copies of those 2. So ideally, I'd like to get those read and reviewed prior to the 16th, but we'll see how that goes. Ultimately, it seems like a big year for Peter S. Beagle, who is an author that has been a massive influence on some of my favorite authors. So I definitely want to check out his stuff. Next up, we have The Creative Act of Being. This is a nonfiction by Rick Rubin. And Rick Rubin is a music producer who has brought us acts like Metallica and Red Hot Chili Peppers and others. So mostly alternative and metal bands. So interesting to see what his thoughts on the creative process are. Again, I don't know when I'll get to this, if I'll get to this. He narrates it himself, which could be good or bad. We'll see. This actually releases on January 17th, so it's next week already. I definitely won't be reading it on release day, that's for sure. But in this one, he sort of set out to understand the creative process, and he said in the process, he learned about what it meant to be alive or to be. I wanted to have at least one nonfiction that was a new release on here, and this one seems pretty promising. I want to check it out for sure. And then last, certainly not least, we have some goodies coming from the Sun Eater universe in 2023. And I'll put a graphic up on the screen from his newsletter where he announced all of this. But essentially, there's a good chance we won't be getting Sun Eater number 6 in 2023. It will probably come in 2024, but we also won't be empty-handed in the year. We're going to be getting a Lorien Aristides novella, which I'm super excited about. Lorien's an awesome character. That is going to be great. We're going to be getting a Bassander Lin novelette, which I am excited about. Bassander Lin is the type of character that you grow to appreciate more as the series goes on. So that will be fantastic. We're going to get Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 3 now, which has, he said at least 5 of them are done. He's released a couple of them in other bind-ups, which I have but haven't read yet, so I'll probably just read all of it together. There is going to be a new special edition this year to go along with The Lesser Devil and Queen of Mid-Ashes by Anderida Books. So there's a ton coming out in 2023 from Sun Eater. And again, I can only reiterate, if you're not reading Sun Eater, you're not doing it correctly. Please read his stuff. And that's about it. Those are the things that are releasing in 2023 that I am at least have on the radar. Some I'm super excited about, obviously, and will be reading on release day itself. I'm hopeful that you all have a ton of stuff that you're looking forward to in the new year as well. Obviously, we're a week and a half into the new year at this point, but you know what I mean. So please comment and let me know what you're looking forward to in the year 2023, or if any of these are on your TBR. And as always, publication order always, my friends.